You're listening to the Lumina Podcast by Ad Valorem, where we shine a light on tax, business strategy and personal wealth.
From running a business to planning your future, we bring real-world insight to help you stay ahead.
Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Lumina Podcast, where we attempt to bring clarity to specialist services where sometimes things don't really appear to be that clear.
And today's topic is one that makes many business owners nervous. That is the dreaded word of audit. But don't worry, do not fear. We have a great guest here today where we're going to be looking at hopefully demystifying all of the preconceived ideas of what an audit actually is.
So Darren, I'd like to welcome Darren, who is one of the Audit Directors at Ad Valorem. Hello, Darren.
Thank you for having me.
You're looking nervous.
Let's get started. Let's start off with the basics. So, Darren, when do we need an audit?
There's many reasons why you would need an audit. So there are several types of audits. There are statutory audits, which are required under the Companies Act. There are voluntary audits where you can request an audit. And there are several specialist audits where an audit is automatically required under their nature or their trade.
Right, brilliant. And what sort of thresholds are we talking here? I mean,
so the thresholds have actually just recently changed.
Okay.
So for accounting periods starting on or after the 6th of April 2025, if you exceed 2 out of these 3 thresholds, you are if you exceed 2 out of 3 in 2 consecutive years, you are required to have a statutory audit, and that is turnover in excess of 15 million, gross assets in excess of 7.5 million, and employees more than 50. Just mention on the gross assets, it's the gross assets, i.e. the total assets, ignoring liabilities.
Right, no, brilliant. Okay. So, I mean, there are some other external things as well. So if you've got foreign parents, typically you look at the whole side, so that may bring it in. I mean, why would somebody...
volunteer.
Why would somebody volunteer for an audit, do you think? What experience have you got there?
Lots of various reasons. Firstly, any shareholder who owns more than 10% of the company can request an audit. That can be very typical where the shareholder is not involved in the running of the company and would like some clarity as to whether the systems are operating efficiently and effectively. Investors certainly would request an audit.
Sure.
Bank covenant agreements.
Use external stakeholder stuff, yeah?
Absolutely.
And I mean, from an audit perspective, I mean, are you coming in and bashing me over the head with a baseball bat, or am I going to get anything off this?
Well, you may be, but no. I think there's a common misconception that an audit is a bad thing. It's not. It's not a sign of any wrongdoing or anything like that. It's just a check of the systems to ensure that your accounts are reflecting what those systems are producing.
And you're making recommendations as well if you see, areas of systems that
absolutely.
Can be
I mean, it's to be looked at as a positive thing. That
Indeed,
if we've got to look for weaknesses in the systems. That's the whole purpose of the audit, and we can make general recommendations as to how those systems can be improved, so that those controls are.
Brilliant. So with my business owner hat on, and having just gone through my first audit as being part of the ETL group for the first time in 30 odd years, I hasten to add. It certainly, as I say, even with my experience and being an RI myself, you still have that misconception, and I think it is very much the stuff you can glean from it, because I think most people, when you're of that size. Yeah, it just stress tests the system, and it's an independent view, which I find quite useful.
It has to be performed by an independent party, obviously, and we're offering an opinion on those financial statements, hopefully unqualified, but a qualification doesn't necessarily mean a negative. It's giving clarity to those business owners that the accounts.
So audits are good. It's the general message. Audits are good.
Of course.
You love it.
I love it. So I'm preparing for my first audit. what sort of stuff should I have in mind? Because I've never done an audit. I don't know anything about audit at all. It's going to be my first audit. I'm very terrified because I'm going to have these people coming in, looking at my systems, which is always, it's a little bit like somebody going through your clothes drawer, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's fair. We're not the enemy, you know, so we're working with you. Yes, we are independent, and yes, we are going to make possibly criticisms of some weaknesses, but we're working with you at the end of the day. One of the biggest mistakes, I guess, or that owners will do is they're just not ready for us. Yeah. Reconcile your accounts. Yeah.
It seems obvious, doesn't it? In a way, doesn't it? But it's not. Yeah.
Your main controls, your bank, your debtors, your creditors, make sure they reconcile to your accounts. That's a good starting point.
Do you think most people view the audit requirement as just onerous and a pretty much negative thing? I think I do as a business owner. I'm thinking,
I think generally
what do I get out of it?
That is the view. It's a cost that you don't get any benefit from.
Yeah.
Would be the perception. I would tend to not completely agree with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But a lot of business owners do feel that. Yes.
Well, I think certainly me. I love a good process. Not that I'm always great at sticking to them, but I do like to design them.
I think it's fair to say there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
You know, there's not many businesses that could say that they've got their internal controls operating to 100% efficiency. So
what sort of things do you find, like with the first? Would you suggest people have their preparations for the year before they're likely to need an audit, or
certainly as you go? I mean, not necessarily before the year end, but because you've still got the same compliance time frame in filing them of 9 months. But the audit process is going to delay the filing of your accounts.
Yeah, it's really important.
So I think don't leave it till the last minute would certainly be the message, because you've got to get your accounts prepared and then the audit can commence. If you're leaving that accounts preparation to the last minute, then the audit is going to be under pressure.
I think there's also an element of, if you know that there are certain areas which are critical to your business. So the one that immediately springs to mind would be stock and inventory.
Yeah.
You could almost do the stock check a year before your audit. So you can actually just do an assurance report to get the auditors in to go through those systems, and they can then make recommendations.
Yes.
I hope to improve it for the coming year. I know it sort of sounds like you're almost beating yourself up, but in the long run, that will actually...
We're certainly doing that. We've got one client now that doesn't need an audit this year, but will need an audit next year. So we've actually done a stock take for them this year so that we can get confirmation that we won't need to qualify the audit report on the basis that we never knew what the opening stock was.
Excellent. So again, it's pre-planning and working.
It is obviously a stock take is done on the year end of the company's day, so you need to plan for that. But the rest of the field work can be done at a later date.
And I think as well now, one of the things when I was doing audit back in the 80s. You were on site for a long time.
Well, I think every company needed an audit in those days, didn't they? So
they did. Thanks for making me feel really old. Yeah, they did indeed.
So, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think now with the technology, there's a lot less of that sort of physical. I think a physical presence is always important, but it's not as rigorous as it used to be, where you would be on site for months in some cases.
Absolutely. I mean, the way the trend has gone is, as you say, historically you used to be on site for 2-3 weeks in one go. With the use of technology, that is far. You still need to be on site. There's you can't verify assets if you're not there.
It means you can go in prepared rather than
absolutely. You're going in prepared, but technology has improved the way audits are done enormously. We use audit software ourselves. It's a two-way piece of kit, and it logs all the times and dates that you're requesting information and that the client responds. It analyses all the client's data. So you
does a lot of that legwork.
It's doing a lot of the legwork for you now.
Because I know when I was in industry, one of the challenges I would have would be I'd have my accounts team. Among the auditors were in, literally the accounts team would pretty much stopped for, well, in our case, probably closer to 6 weeks,
Yeah.
while they were answering all the auditors' questions. Not as big a case anymore, which I think can only be really good in terms of, that's interference with the general running of the business. So okay, no, that's really good. So we've touched on, the voluntary audit. When do you think it would be a good idea to have sort of a voluntary audit? We've talked about it in terms of if you've got particular areas when you're running up to your first audit, but
certainly if you're expanding rapidly, you're going to need an audit in the future, but not this year maybe. But
right.
It's certainly a good process if you know you're going to need it.
How about if you were looking for, to sell? Maybe?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Exit route offers more credibility to any potential buyers or lenders in that regard. Definitely audited accounts for an exit route.
I think we've certainly seen it with companies that you've been working with for years, where they've come to an audit, obviously, and then looking at succession. And, it does really help if, when it comes to, lending, if you've got an audited set of accounts, doesn't it?
Well, I think banks place reliance on an audited set of accounts because we are offering an opinion at the end of the day, and we're giving reasonable assurance to the lender that these accounts are genuine and they can base their business decisions on that.
Yeah. I think as well, obviously we do acquisitions ourselves, and the big benefit that you've got, certainly when you've got a due diligence hat on, is if you've got an audited set of accounts, you're actually, as part of the audit, you'll get a management letter each year which identifies the weakness. Never used to have that, but now I think that is a really good thing because it's a lot more risk based. So for me, the first thing I do is ask for the management letter, and then it's already saying, right, well, these are the areas of control that we need to look at.
Clients generally wonon't sign the accounts until you've run through the management letter.
Yeah, quite right. And so I think it's. Audit now is I think it's less, I won't say less rigorous, it's less onerous, I think is probably the word. Less onerous than it used to be. I think there's a lot more positives than negatives. One client many years ago described to me as the sales prevention team, which I don't know, quite a bit harsh, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I think, there has been, the way that audit has changed has allowed it to be a lot more
I think it helps manage risk, doesn't it? So I think, certainly as a business, director of a business,
yes,
you understand you've got quite a big responsibility. And I think the audit team's there to actually help you in a way, because if you're highlighting to me areas of risk in our business, I'd be saying, it could be things that you really should try and deal with, but for whatever reason you don't do it. And I think, so from a business owner's point of view, I think that could be really helpful in managing risk, and understanding, even if you may not have the resources to deal with that problem that year, that you've got to sort that by the time you come to do an audit.
Completely agree. As an owner, you want to know where the weaknesses in your systems are, because if it improves your efficiencies, it can only be a good thing.
I think depending on the business as well. It's might not, particularly like creative industries and things where that might not be your thing. You might not as a business owner be that good at that. It's good to know what you should buy in, essentially.
And what keeps audit interesting, which I know is going to get a laugh, is that an audit can be of any business. You could have buying kiwi fruits, for example, but in mass, right? Or you've got a manufacturing company. It's that's what every challenge is different in terms of how you have to approach the audit.
Yeah.
What's again, sort of coming back. Are there certain red flags to you when you'll look at maybe last year's accounts? They may be audited, they may not. You might have a look at the systems or the accounts that have been presented. Are there any red flags to you that you look at set and say immediately, right, okay, these are areas of focus, or these are things that perhaps haven't been
there are some areas that are under the international auditing standards that are automatically red flags, and those are management override.
Right.
So if you're in a position of management where you could control or influence what the accounts show, that is a massive red flag. Revenue recognition, under or over recognising revenue for the reasons we potentially discussed earlier, is another massive risk. They are two of the automatic ones. Then you're absolutely right. We're looking at the accounts and seeing what doesn't look right here. Is there anything unusual within those figures that we're looking at? And obviously with the use of the audit software as well, that is analysing the client's ledgers, looking for unusual transactions. It's looking for the dates, recurring transactions. It's doing all the analytical processes for you as well. So, and that's ultimately the way we would approach the audit.
Yeah. No, it's certainly a very different world now, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, very different world.
But I love this. Could be the greatest podcast in history, making audit interesting. I love that. We're all excited about audit.
We nail that. So we're ready to go down in history. Yeah.
But no, I mean, for me, as I say, as I am an auditor, and as I say, I've been on both sides, including this year, which was the first one for me. I think it's very much a collaborative approach now. Didn't used to be so much, maybe, but didn't feel so much. But I think it is a lot more collaborative. I think there is a lot of value you can get from audit.
Yes.
So that's why we're seeing, I think, even though the thresholds are going up, we're seeing a lot more people wanting voluntary audits, which are great, and which I think is a great testament to the business and the vision and the vision of where the business owner wants to take it.
Yep.
So Darren, thank you so much for coming along. Making audit interesting.
I've tried.
It's been brilliant. No, we're all very excited. I think everybody's going to be rushing out to be an auditor. Not joking aside, it's a great place to be. And I think it's always a really interesting space because you get to see the inner workings of a business at a higher level. It's a great thing. So thank you. Right, Darren, thanks so much for shedding some light into this world which is clouded by misconceptions and misunderstandings. I think you've made it a lot clearer. I think it's a lot more of a collaborative thing these days, and that's really good. So we've got our final bit, which is the quickfire questions, which we'd like to aim. What's the one thing that a business should do, say, a month or 2 months before they have an audit and before it starts?
Definitely make sure your reconciliations are done.
Brilliant. Okay.
Darren, biggest mistake that you see in first-time audit?
Yeah, not being prepared for the audit process. Just get your records in order.
Brilliant.
Okay, and the final one is, I think we already touched on it, but one reason that you'd recommend for somebody to have a voluntary audit.
Yes, definitely for external lending, investor security, reliability of your internal processes.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Darren.
Pleasure.
I think that's it for this episode of the Lumina Podcast. Thanks very much. Join us next time.